Hello, my name is Emily Gray, and today I will be talking about Charlotte Bronte and her famous novel, Jane Eyre. Charlotte Bronte was a British novelist whose most famous work was Jane Eyre. When Charlotte was a young girl, they went to live with their Aunt Elizabeth Brunwell. Charlotte and her sister Emily would attend clergy daughters' school at Coney Bridge with Reverend William Carus Wilson as the principal. In 1831, Charlotte was sent to Roe Head, where she met her lifelong friend, Ellen Nussey. She eventually left Roe Head and became a governess for the White family. However, that job did not last very long. Charlotte, along with her sisters, decided they would open a school together, so her and her sisters decided to go to Brussels to finish their studies as teachers. When she returned home, they tried to open up a school that they had dreamed of, but the general public, however, did not like this idea. To surpass this hurdle, they decided to publish their works under the male pseudonyms of Kerr, Ellis, and Action Bell. Charlotte and her sister Anne went to publish their works in London, and they revealed to their publisher that they were the Bells. A year later, Charlotte's Jane Eyre, Emily's Wuthering Heights, and Anne's Agnes Grey were all published, but they were still under the Bell pseudonym. In 1853, Reverend A.B. Nichols proposed to Charlotte, though she was not in love with him. Nichols was not easily discouraged, and he proposed Charlotte yet again, and they were finally married. Charlotte did not like this man very much of being married, but she admired Nichols greatly. The following year, she found out she was expecting her first child with him, but she ended up catching pneumonia, which cost her her life. The reason that she is a radical writer is because she writes about what people can relate to. Her novel, Jane Eyre, is about her life with some changes while staying true to the same general biography. She was a very big believer in raising the literary rate in writing novels that those same people would want to read. What I actually forgot about Charlotte Bronte was that she had to publish under the pseudonym Currer Bell. The view of general at the time, it was not a woman's place to write for other people, and she had to find a way for people to read her writing despite being a woman. She shows women can write and people saw what she wrote. I think it's sad that women back then had to do that for people to read their book. Charlotte Bronte wanted people to notice what she went through in her life, and Jane Eyre is a perfect example for that. Being a radical writer is trying to be true to her ideals and for people to read her book and communicate her ideas who would not see otherwise. Jane Eyre is one of Bronte's most radical works because it mirrors her life and struggles people would not see otherwise. In the novel Jane Eyre, it follows a young girl named Jane trying to find two things in her life: having a stable home and finding somewhere she belonged. When Bronte was a young girl, she was sent to live with her aunt. Similarly, in Jane Eyre, Jane was also a young girl whose mother had passed away, and she was sent to live with her very cruel aunt, Mrs. Reed. Not having a strong mother figure in her life is what shaped Bronte's radical writing. Also, in the novel Jane Eyre, when she was being raised by her aunt, her and her cousin did not get along very well, and he would always pick on her, and her aunt decided to lock her in her uncle's room where he passed away and just keep her in there, which made her kind of go crazy and wrote her all her feelings down. When Charlotte was young, her and her sister Emily were sent to a school called Roe Head, where the cruel principal was named Reverend Wilson. Bronte and her sister were sent to a boarding school named Roe Head. In similar fashion, Jane Eyre was sent to a boarding school named Lowood. Due to the fact that they were both sent to a boarding school, it showed up in her writing. The headmaster at Roe Head was named Mr. Brocklehurst, a very similar personality as Reverend William Carus. When Charlotte was sent to Roe Head, she met her lifelong friend, Ellen Nussey. The way Ellen Nussey, just like Charlotte, who made her lifelong friend attending Lowood, when she met her lifelong friend, Helen Burns. This helped both Charlotte and Jane become more out of their shell, because they didn't really meet many people. So when Charlotte met Ellen and Jane met Helen, see, it made them come out their shell and wrote their feelings down more. This helped both Charlotte and Jane become more out of their shell. Charlotte did something similar to Jane. She actually left Roe Head and became a governess for a family. And the character Jane became a governess for a little French girl. This inspired both Jane and Charlotte to push the envelope to do something they both believed in, is to teach the next generation. Jane and Charlotte both loved reading, and I believe they both wanted to teach more people about reading and writing, but back then they were like, it wasn't a big thing. So I think both Jane and Charlotte wanted to push the envelope more to go and teach more people. This inspired both Jane and Charlotte to push the envelope and to do something they both believed in, which is teach the next generation. Also, Jane and Charlotte's love lives were both very similar as well. Charlotte was engaged to a clergyman whom she did not love but had a mountain of respect for, and Jane ended up marrying a man whom she did not love at first but also admired. Basically, they were both pretty tough women. They basically, whatever was thrown at them, they both tried to make the best of the situation, even though if it was marrying the man they really didn't love, or trying people to like read their stuff without knowing a woman wrote this novel, or getting her sisters like, hey, let's have a crazy idea and do a school, even though it might not get off the ground. We tried and we actually did something in our lives.